Hello and welcome to this video entry. Today I'm going to be talking about Jabber Guest. Jabber Guest is Cisco's web-based collaboration solution whereby customers and clients can visit any given company's website, click on a link, and immediately the web browser becomes a video endpoint through which end-to-end video communication can be established between the client on the web page and also a video endpoint within the company. So essentially, the Jabber Guest solution gives the client a convenient and easy way of establishing high definition video and communication with a given company's sales team or other important personalities. Essentially, it takes away the need for any specialized hardware. Jabber Guest is supported on a variety of browsers, including the iOS platform. And so this is the standard deployment you would see in any given Jabber Guest deployment. You would essentially be seeing the end client on running on the coming via the web page or the website using HTTP-based web protocol to gain entry into the network. That rope protocol is inter-networked. So the SIP gateway is like, the Jabber Guest server is like a gateway which transforms that rope protocol to SIP signaling. So the SIP signaling goes back to the VCS, and the VCS sends, because the VCS sends the call, forwards the call to communications manager simply because the targeted endpoint is sitting on or registered to call manager. So at the end of the day, we then have end-to-end connectivity between the external caller and the internal caller via these devices in this topology. Today, we're not going to be deploying the Expressway servers. I'm going to be breaking it up into the deployment of the Jabber Guest cluster, which is going to be made up of 3 servers, and afterwards in the upcoming video demonstration, I'll be integrating the Expressway servers with the rest of the network. Today, we are going to basically deploy the cluster, configure the links on Jabber Guest, publish the links on our website for callers or visitors, web visitors to click on. We're going to create a SIP trunk, not to Expressway as per the standard deployment model. Rather, we're going to be sending SIP trunks directly to Communications Manager just to test that Jabber Guest is able to receive call from a web-based client and relay that call to any given communications manager server or VCS-C servers, or basically just an endpoint that is able to route the traffic to the appropriate destination. Okay, having said that, I'm just going to take us through what we have in the VMware infrastructure, just going through all the servers that have been used to build the topology or the solution so far. We've got an Active Directory server which hosts all our users. That same Active Directory server is integrated with Communications Manager for LDAP synchronization and authentication. I'm just running IMMP server, IMM present server in the background, not necessarily because this deployment model demands it, but just simply because the video endpoints that are going to be within the network that the remote web clients are going to be calling are going to be Jabber clients, and I have my Jabber client set up to run via the IMMP, but of course it can also run directly through Call Manager. We've got the Windows clients here, 2 Windows clients where the actual Jabber soft forms are running. The most important part of this whole solution is my IIS server, which is running the my web services. I have a web page configured there, and in that web page I'm going to be deploying links to the web page. Of course, I also have that server is also a CA, a certificate authority. In the upcoming demonstration, I'm going to be changing the web certificates, server certificates running on the Jabber servers, Jabber guest servers. And of course, I'm also going to be uploading the root CA cert onto the Jabber guest servers also. Just to give us a head start, I've deployed Cisco advises that one should deploy 3 Jabber guest servers in a cluster, hence the reason why I've already pre-deployed 2, not configured but just installed with blank config. And so now I'm just going to quickly deploy our very first server, and so we can get the ball rolling. Okay, so we'll go to File, actually I'll be deploying it from within my cluster. I'll remote RDP to the server, and I'll deploy OVF template. That's my OVA. I'll select next, and I'll call this Jabber guest 1 server. Oh, sorry, I think I've already deployed Jabber guest 1. I'll deploy Jabber guest 3, which is the final server. I'll select the host. Then I'll select the storage, location storage. I'll select the network I'm going to put it on. And then, most important, I must remove this. Otherwise, if I configure static configs in here at post deployment, those configs will not be considered, and anything you put here will be ignored. So first of all, tick that box, put the static details in at 192.168.0.149, and subnet mask of 255.255.255.0. Host name, call it Jabber guest 3. Okay. Domain name is labs.com. Default gateway is 192.168.0.1. We're not using IPv6, so we'll skip that. DNS server is 192.168.0.9. And we're not using secondary DNS. We're going to move to the primary NTP server. I have a very reliable one that I always use, which is 181.168.77.149. Okay. Just confirm everything again. Make sure that's not ticked. Okay, we'll say next to that, and then we'll say power on after the completion of deployment. Now that we've done that, I think the next thing we need to now do is go to the Jabber guest primary server. So the very first thing I want to do, let me see if I can bring this up on a console. Okay, so I'm logged into the Jabber guest primary server. The very first thing I'll do is to bring up the cluster services, because I'm going to be clustering the server. Right now the server is still in standalone mode, so I'll say cluster, initiate. Okay, so it's asking me to create a cluster administration account. So that's a cluster username that all of those subsequent servers are going to use to join the cluster. So I'll call it cluster. It's asking me for the cluster password. I'll create one. Confirm the password again. Okay, so it's now configuring database for replication. So it's configuring as primary, and Cisco has especially put it there as a note. A healthy cluster should have 3 nodes. 2 more nodes should be added to complete this cluster. Understandable. So quickly restart the Tomcat service before moving any further. Okay, so now the cluster is now restarting. Well, Tomcat service is restarting. So I'll move on to the secondary server. Now I need to point that secondary server to the cluster so that it can become part of the cluster. So once again, very simple command. Cluster join 192.168.0.251, which is our primary server. Okay, I'll say yes to that. Okay. It's asking me to verify the certificate of the remote party. I say yes. And it's asking me to enter my root password. Okay, nice, worked. It's asking me for the cluster username, which is cluster. It's asking for the cluster password. Okay, so now it's now configuring the database for replication. Okay, so while that's going on, I'll skip that and I'll go into Call Manager just to show what we've done on Call Manager. I'll open a browser, and so I'll go into Enterprise Parameters, and I'll just do a find for fully qualified domain name. So because it's an enterprise cluster setting, what this means is that any call coming in with domain name of labs.com, this server will understand that it should acknowledge and try to process this request, because you'll see it as a call belonging to its own personal domain. So we'll put that in. Another thing we've configured is the phones themselves, because from the Jabber guest clients on the websites, they're going to be using URIs to dial in. So of course the endpoints here, we've enabled them for URI. So yep, that's the directory URI for one of the users. So that user should be able to dial, should be able to be called via the extension or the directory URI. Another thing we have here is if I do a find for profile. So the SIP profile, we've got standard SIP profile for phones, and if we just scroll down through the profile, just maximize that, just to see, it's just a standard SIP profile, nothing much changed, except we're allowing sharing via BFCP. We are also using fully qualified domain name in SIP request. This is just like one of the settings that comes standard in the deployment guide for VCS to call manager SIP trunk configuration guide, which is easily available. And the next thing we have, now we've set up the phones, next thing we have here is the trunk, the SIP trunk that is going to be used for receiving calls from the Jabber guest servers. I've essentially created a Jabber guest server, and I've used the SIP trunk SIP profile for VCS for it. So once again, we just got the DNS name, sorry, the name of the SIP trunk, and I've set everything here to default. And if I go to profile again, I'm using the non-secure SIP trunk profile, and in the SIP profile I'm using SIP profile for VCS. I've got here all the, because the calls are going to be coming, as the calls are coming in from the Jabber guest server, we need to know the IP address of the devices that are coming in, or rather we need to configure them in call manager so that call manager will accept those calls from those endpoints. So put all the servers, IP addresses of all the servers in a Jabber guest cluster, starting from the top down on port 5060. So that is basically it that we have on Call Manager, simply for calls coming in to the infrastructure. Having said that, there's one thing that I need to go over, which is the default device pool. Default device pool also has a region of default, and important because we're going to be establishing calls through that region. We must ensure that we've provisioned sufficient bandwidth for video calls. Hence the reason why these default region settings, or the default region, has been set to 6000 kbps for video calls. So that's essentially it on the Call Manager side. Another little video that is very lovely, that I found very, very interesting, is this Jabber guest explained in detail. Really, really lovely, in case anyone wants to take a look at it. Okay, having said that, this is still configuring database for replication. So if I go in here, and I check the status of cluster, I say cluster status, see what's happening. So it's still only seeing itself as a primary. Of course, it's going to take time. Database services do take time to sync up. And yeah, let's see what this is doing. Yeah, it's still trying to set up the database. So we'll go on to the third server. Let's see what that is up to. So it's up and running now. So the first thing, what I'm about to do now is what I did on the first two servers. So I'm just going to start off by entering the password of root, username of root, and then the password of Jabber C server. Enter the password again. Create a new password. Okay, so now I have a new password. Just quickly, good measure, restart the Tomcat service. Okay, we'll leave that to cook in the background. We'll go back to the secondary server and see what that's up to. Okay, so it's now recognized that there are now 2 servers in the cluster. Because it says here, a healthy cluster should have 3 nodes. And this is a secondary server that's trying to establish database connectivity. And then it says 1 more node should be configured, which is in progress. So we'll do a cluster status in this one. And it can see itself as the secondary. And of course, you can see the other server as the primary. So okay, so we'll come back to Java 3, and now we'll try and join it to the cluster. Say cluster join. We'll point at the primary server, which is 251. Okay, yes, yeah, it's asking us to acknowledge the certificate of the remote server. We've acknowledged that. It's asking us for our local password, root password. It's now trying to join the cluster. It's asking us for the cluster name or cluster username. Now it's asking us for the cluster password. Okay, so it says, well, the cluster has 3 nodes and is complete. Here's the interesting part. So we go to the primary server. Oh, by the way, I'll just restart this for good measure. Okay. And if we go back to the primary here, and I'll do a cluster status, we see that we can see the primary, secondary, and another secondary, which is good. And then if we go here to the second server and do a cluster status, we can see here it says, well, I can see the primary, which is 251. I can see myself, which is 250. I can see 241, but it's actually not reachable. I can't establish a database connectivity to it. I can see that it's healthy, but I can't reach it. And if I go to the third server as well, cluster status, exactly the same thing. So essentially, it's almost like we need to establish some form of full mesh connectivity to all servers. So server 3 here is 149, because essentially we can see ourselves as a secondary, but the other one, 250, we can't see it. So we need to allow that now. So what we need to do is we do cluster allow and put the IP address of the device or the Jabber guest server that is saying not reachable. Put 192.168.0.250. And press enter on that. And then now let's do cluster status. Still saying exactly the same thing, but here is the interesting thing. We'll go to Jabber guest 2. We'll go to Jabber guest 2 and we'll do cluster status. We can see that it is now seeing, this secondary server is now seeing the primary and tertiary server. Essentially, when we said allow on JabberGuest 3 and pointed at the IP address of 2, we're essentially saying we're going to allow him to speak to us. Hence the reason why he's now confirming that he can speak to us. So that's our first confirmation, not necessarily requiring an extensive show command. So we know this is 250, so we're looking for 249, so we say cluster allow 192.168.0.2.149. Okay, and then we allow that. Okay, and say if we go here again, just do a quick cluster share status, and everything is now allowed, which is what we're looking for. Now that we've got that running, let us start accessing the web pages. So our primary server, as you can see, is at 251. So let's jump on that straight away and see what we can get out of it. Okay. So the alias is admin, and default password once again Jabber C server. Enter. He's now going to ask us to change the password, which I will do. Now let's change that as a test. Let's confirm that replication is indeed working. So let's go to 250, which is the secondary server, and okay, while I'm going to put the same username and password that I just created in. So admin. So essentially, once they're clustered and you create a password on the primary server, the same password is applicable for the other nodes as well. So just create a new admin user. I'll just call him JBat. I'll just say MK. First name I'll say I'll just put it. Okay, so that's the new user. So we test that on the third server. HTTPS once again. Okay, so I believe the username was MK. Okay, so I'm able to log in. He is an admin, and now I need to create some links. Well, actually, let me start from the bottom up. I'll go to settings, and what I now want to do is to go to call control media, where I'm going to be establishing communication to my call manager server. And it's asking me whether I want to use Expressway series servers or whether I want to use the communications manager. I'll put communications manager in. I'll put port 5060 SIP. I'll put the domain labs.com, and I'll put the server, which is 192.168.0.100. So that is the domain that's running on my call manager server. So of course, anything for SIP domain labs.com will be going to my call manager server. The 192.168.0.100 is my call manager server, and I'm using 5060 for this communication. Okay, so that is all set up. I now have end-to-end connectivity to my call manager. So I'll just go there. Okay, so it's all the same. So the very next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go into links. So these are the links I'm going to be publishing on the website. I'm going to create a link, and the destination path, I'm going to say it's a custom string. And you can see there is saying call. I'm going to say call customer. I'll just say call sales underscore department. Okay, so that is just the alias that we're going to be seeing in the link. But the true destination, which is in the background, I'm going to say is jbat, which is an internal URI existing in Call Manager, jbatlabs.com. And I'm going to say the display name of this call is, I'm going to say display. Underscore jbat. The reason why I put display, we'll know about it when I start looking at traces, because further down I'm going to take a look at traces to see as everything is appearing in traces in response to our configuration. So the caller name, the person that we're calling, this name is the name that's going to be shown to the users dialing via the Jabber web page or Jabber web client. So we're going to call it sales. Notice that I put it all in caps. And once again, just so when we're checking everything, we can actually see everything as we expect it to be in the traces, or just so we can differentiate when we start seeing everything, how our configurations is impacting on the deployment or the end results. So I'll call this once again sales. I'll put this on sales department. Okay. We're going to say this link is always active, so it's telling us to close this gap. Okay. So now this is essentially a link that we've now created, which is HTTP IP address of the Jabber guest, call sales department. So of course when it hits this link, all these variables here would then be used to determine the next step. So the next step is destination jack@labs.com. We have a settings here which says call control labs.com at 192.168.0.100 on port 5060 should be going to call manager. So we know where the call is going to go to as soon as we hit this link, because on this link we can see the destination and we know the trunk that we've configured for it. Okay. Having said that, this link is more or less ready for testing. We can do this and we paste it into browser, and we see here it brings up, the request to make a call. So we're essentially using the camera of this PC and the mic of this PC, which is now integrated into the web page. And of course we can see already in self view, we can see what is on the camera of the calling party, which is accessing the web page. Now we're calling directly from Jabber guest, but just so we understand that so long as we could use a DNS name here, so long as it points at Jabber guest, this is the action the Jabber guest will take, which is to make a call, and the person we're calling is sales_department, which is just an alias. Remember, we configured the display name. We can see it here, display_jackbat. So he's ready to call display_jackbat. Now this is really interesting, but I'm going to come here and now go over to, now we know that the infrastructure is set up. Actually, before we say that, let's make that call. So that is a call to jackbat. Jackbat answers the call. As you can see, Jackbat is now seeing the video. Now, let's look at the names we're seeing. Here's the name we're seeing here, sales department. So if we go back into the link, and I click on the link, and we see this is the caller name. So the call going towards call name, hence the reason why we see sales department. So, and if we go over here, we see here sales department. So I'll change this to Jabber guest based client. Okay, I'll update that link and I'll end this call. And what I'll do is I'll go back into that server, refresh this link. Okay, wait for it to come. Okay, so I'll make the call. That was a missed call. So I answered the call. Now we can see Jabber guest based client. Okay. The display name we're seeing here is jackbat, which is once again the display name we configured here. We're going to further on down the line, we're going to see this and this in the zip traces as well once we get to that section. So we can confirm that end-to-end connectivity is working. Now we'll make a call with this link. Okay, so it's about to call Dr. Brown. Dr. Brown answers the call, and Dr. Brown does have a video, so a virtual video set up, so hence Dr. Brown is able to stream this picture as a video. And just to confirm that it is a video, we can say stop my video, and of course we see that the video presentation has stopped, and we can start my video here. Similarly, we can start video presentation here, and if we click here, we can see what was agreed in the establishment of the video communication, 720p, and we're transmitting at approximately 1.7 M. So if I say, for instance, stop transmitting video, straight away we noticed that there is now zero communication here. And of course, we no longer see any video here as well. And if we start seeing it again. Okay, so we've now managed to get Jabber calling Communications Manager, Endpoints and Communication Manager directly from the Jabber Guest web page. However, we've not yet published those actual web links, Jabber Guest web links, to a company website. So that's what we're about to do now. I've got my IIS server here running on Windows Server 2008, and if I just list all my websites, this is one of my websites here. You can see it's localhost.call, and obviously localhost would always resolve down to a personal IP address. This server's IP address is also 192.168.0.19. So of course that will still take me to the company web page, which is just a quickly put together web page just to help us to publish the link. So that works. So we can still get that URL. Now what's important is this. This company website is unlikely to be IP addressed /call. It could be something like, for instance, I believe I have a host name that I've configured for this. So if I go into my DNS, okay, so I've configured it as sales. Okay, so I believe the URL I've configured is sales.labs.com. So essentially brings us back to the same place. So this is the company website called sales.labs.com. Here is the link here that I've configured. If I inspect the elements to view how that link is configured, this is the entire web page. You can see the welcome, the HTML, the body, the welcome. See, each time I click, it's highlighted at the top. We can see the please click the link below, blah blah blah, and the actual link itself. You can see where it's actually going to. It's going to a URL called HTTPS. Let me actually zoom into this one. Okay, so we can see a URL there. Let me go back first of all. You can see a URL there, https /guestvideo.labs.com call Dr._Brown. Now this is the link that I would have created in Jabber Guest, and this guestvideo.labs.com must resolve to the Jabber Guest server. So if I quickly here, if I pull up CMD and I go to ping guest video.labs.com, we can see here is resolving to 250, which is one of the IP addresses of my Jabber Guest servers. So that's where that's going. So when it gets to Jabber Guest, we tell Jabber Guest we want to make a call, and we want to call Dr. Brown. So function, then destination. So just to confirm that this link actually exists, we need to do something. Go back to Jabber Guest,
and go to links, and this is from a previous configuration. And we can see the link does not actually exist, so I will need to create that link. So this would be a custom string. If I go back here, Dr_Brown, okay. Brown, destination be dbrown at labs.com. Display name, when we call in dbrown, what does it show? We can have it show, just say he's in IT department, say IT. And then call a name that Dr. Brown sees when a call comes in. We'll call it, we just say guest server. And the caller SIP alias, call it guest_server as well. And we'll say this link is always active. Now, this link here now matches this link, because regardless of the domain that we have here, this domain here is actually pointing to the guest server, and when we get there, we're going to say call dbrown. To test that, we're going to go to our web page again, refresh it, and when we click on this link, this is essentially what we're triggering here. We're triggering over to Jabber guests, and we load. Okay, and you can see the link we hit there, call Dr. Brown. Confirm that that link is correct. Okay, that's not correct. Tell you what, let's put the small caps in. There you go. So it's actually case sensitive. So a little typo there, but we can quickly change that to replicate this. It's a good thing this happened. So if we go into the call, because remember the web page that I went to was sales.labs.com/call. So if I go into my IIS and I go into my call folder and I go to manage, advanced settings, and I can see where the web page is actually stored. Okay, and if I decide to go there, see init pub, and then there you go, Jabber guest, which is this folder here. See init pub Jabber guest. So if I open this, it's my website, and I open it in Notepad, I'll then change this to a lowercase b. I'll save that. I'll close that. And then I'll come back to the web page and I'll click the same link again, or I refresh it rather. You can see it's changed to lowercase. Now, if we click here, it's now showing lowercase. So we're expecting it to communicate with our Jabber guest server now. So you see it's asking us for the certificate. And this is what you'd see the first time if you're using Jabber guest for the first time. You'll be asked to install this little plugin here. Which I'm desperately trying to install. Okay. Okay, so it's installed. So I'll just say you can run it. So it's now saying Java guestvideo.labs.com wants to access your microphone and camera. We say yes to that, and then it now has access, and we can then place a call and check that. If I'm not mistaken, Dr. Brown should be here, and we answer that call. Okay, and Dr. Brown is streaming his video here to him, and of course he's also seeing the video call. He's not sending anything because he actually doesn't have a camera attached. So we've now seen that the call itself was triggered from this web page, company website. We then clicked on this link, which triggered this link here in the background. We went to guestvideo.labs.com, which translates to the IP address of the Jabber guest server. We did /call/Dr. Brown, which implies we're trying to call Dr. Brown. And if we go to Jabber guest server, we can see it here, /call/Dr. Brown goes to the destination of D Brown, which is on Communications Manager. Now, if I, for instance, wanted to make this same call here to Communications Manager, let's say I take the link, and I say 192.168.149, which is good, and then the next setting is call / I'll say Dr._Brown. Okay, and I click. Yeah, I misspelled Dr. Brown. So I click on that. I'll install my plugin. Run. And the reason I'm installing this on this machine is because I actually want to take the logs for the Jabber guest, so that we can actually see what's actually happening in the background as we've now completed the initial setup, just to confirm connectivity between Communications Manager and Jabber guest. Point to remember, the officially supported deployment model is with Expressway, which I will be presenting in an upcoming video. So once this plugin finishes the install, I'll be pulling up some traces. We'll take a look at the traces just to confirm the IP addresses, and a quick look at the signaling, and we'll call it a day. Okay, so we're going to allow it to take control of the mic. Don't know what effect that's going to have on my recording. Okay, so it says it's ready to call the IT department now, and we can now place a call. So we now have end-to-end call. So let's just stop that call. Now quickly take a look at what the logs show us. So because I've established that call and installed that plugin, we should now have a new directory. For the logs. the users. Go into the particular user that you're using to log in. Go to app data, and we'll go to local low, and then we go to Cisco, and go to chip log, and you see the chip there. We can open that straight away in Notepad++. Now, that's now opened in Notepad++. A quick trick that we can use here to breeze through the logs, just to make sure, especially if we want to see if everything's working fine. Quick trick for searching. Okay, so I'm going to do a find. Now I know that I called brown, so how about I just look for brown? Go to the very top of the page and find. Okay, so that's it there, where I was clicking the URL. You can see call.widget URL is _ Dr. Brown. The name is IT department, just as we had configured. Now, of course, we know that after clicking that link, we set up a HTTP rope signaling session with the Jabber guest. So the call should start going shortly. So another quick shortcut, and just say calling, and search the entire document for calling. Bring up the results. So looking at timer here, let's maximize this. Okay, it's now 6:27, 4:45, and then by 6:27:17, clicked on the link. By 6:27:45, we already had a calling call active. Okay, and we can see here, call changing from idle to calling, call changing to connected status. Okay, once again we can see where we're sending our request to the Jabber guest server, and just highlight that. You see the calling there. So you can see the calling state changing there. You can see it's using a remote address, and it's also confirmed its local address. So we have to take note of some of these IP addresses. Okay, and just scan through all of this. Okay, so you can see here it's creating a video communication, a video connection, and what parameters is it using for the video communication. You can see here, this looks completely similar to SIP in terms of the SDP. We can even see a local SDP, session description protocol, and we're seeing its personal IP addresses there, .2, using it for signaling and media. You can see the audio parameters it's trying to use, and also here we can see the video parameters that it's trying to use for the call too. Okay, so if one were to just continue going through all of this, we would And once again, we see call event, answer. Yeah, so we could also take this and just come here again, copy that, and just do Control F. Let's search for call event. There we go. Answer, timeout, 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 bye. So this is when the call was, so this is where, first of all, successfully sent offer, and the invite, talking about the SDP offer there, and the SIP invite. You can see if we take that call ID and follow this call down, you can see the call event answer, that call was answered. And we can see the device that answered us. You can see it was the IP address of the call manager, 192.168.0.100, and even goes as far as telling us the name, Cisco Systems CUCM SIP. Okay, and we can see the IP address of the endpoint, regardless of the fact that the CUCM was controlling the call in between. We can actually see the IP address of the endpoint itself, the Jabber for Windows that was answering the call, which was .16. And just to confirm that, you can see the .16 IP address. That's the machine there. So we're not going to go any further. I mean, one can just see what's going on there. I'm going to quickly take now call manager traces to see the call manager side of things. So I'm going to say collect files, and I'm going to say call manager. I'm going to tell it to give me the last 10 minutes of calls. Jabber. I'm going to say compress the logs. Now we're going to see what actually happened on the communications manager side of things. Okay, so it's completed downloading. So we have the chip logs for the client itself. Now we can go to desktop. And we can go to a folder called Jabber. Just confirm that all the logs are open. SDL. So we only have one file. And if I open that SDL file in okay. So if I start from the beginning and I search for Brown, for instance, actually let me search on all the documents for Brown. Or rather, instead of doing that, I'll do invite. I have very few calls, so I should be able to see invite for Brown. So I can see an invite there. And it was the Jabber guest server that was calling in. And we can see here, if we look at the SIP trace, we can see that the call is coming in from 192.168.0.49, which is IP address of the Jabber guest server. And this is the very interesting part that I said we'll later see in the SIP traces. So just to prove this, I'm gonna quickly go to the Jabber guest admin, and I'm gonna bring this side by side. Now, just looking at what we actually sent in call. So this was a call from to D Brown, so it wouldn't be this link. We'll go to the other link. Log in first. Okay. So this was a call to Dr. Brown. So go look for Dr. Brown. So if you open Dr. Brown, if we look at, for instance, yes, the name here, the contact name, and the remote party ID name. If we look here, we can see that the caller name, you can see here, guest server, we can also see the space. And for the caller ID SIP alias, we can see the underscore here. Deliberately put that there so we'll be able to differentiate. We can see it there. So all these things affect the what we see in the SIP traces. So it's very, very good for tracking down routing of calls. Well, if multiple parties are not using the same call, in which case we'll be adding a unique ID, which would append an extra string there. Okay, so looking at, so that's how the call came in. We can see this to D Brown, because our destination was to dbrown@labs.com. So the call manager actually received it in this fashion, in URI format. You can see it's an invite. If we just follow this call, and by taking this call ID, okay, we'll just follow it down. First of all, we can see that we're seeing the IP address of the Jabber guest client there, and those were all the SDP variables that I wanted to negotiate with us. So if we scroll further down the call, we can see how we went back and told the Jabber guest server. We sent a message to back to Jabber guest server, telling that we're trying to make the call. And that's the SIP stack. So soon after, we send a 180 ringing to Jabber guest, informing that Dr. Brown's phone is now ringing. Okay, and once again another outgoing message to Jabber guest, informing it of the fact that we now have a 200 message, and the final criteria for call communication, SDP criteria, and message from Jabber guest server and acknowledgement. So essentially, if we went through that in great detail, we'll be able to troubleshoot the call. But the most important thing is we're seeing the calls coming from the Jabber guest server. So essentially, the Jabber guest server is like a gateway where we HTTP-based protocol terminates on Jabber guest server. Jabber guest server translates that into SIP and sends it to communications manager. In real life deployment, we'll be sending it to the Expressway, and in the call manager traces, we'll be seeing the Expressway server IP address or name in the SIP traces, because once again, the Expressway servers are also like a proxy. Alright, so I hope this has been helpful, and I've really had a great time doing this. It's probably been a very long video. I've had loads of time on this, and I've had loads of fun doing it. I've probably never enjoyed myself for such an extended time for a very long time. It's really exciting to be playing around with this, albeit a bit late, but I'll be posting the other videos for Expressway series integration with Jabber guest server shortly. Thanks for your time. Cheers. Bye.